Have you ever felt your heart pounding just before making a decision you know could change everything? That was me, Daniel, staring at my phone on a humid North Carolina evening, thumb hovering over Rachel's number. I'd always pictured myself as steady, loyal, a family man. But there I was, defined by hesitation, teetering on the edge of a choice that would test my very sense of self. Let me take you back. I was 34, managing construction projects under the relentless Carolina sun, married for 10 years to Claire, raising our joyful daughter Emily in a house that echoed with routine. On the outside, we looked like any other family on our block. But inside, our life was quietly unraveling. The spark that once fueled our laughter had dimmed, replaced by the friction of daily survival, her nursing shifts, my long hours, conversations reduced to logistics and bills. Now you might be thinking, Daniel, wasn't love supposed to be enough? I thought so too, until Rachel arrived at work, an interior designer with an eye for color and a knack for noticing the invisible. She brought new terms into my world, like biophilic design, which in plain English just means bringing the outdoors inside. But she also brought something else, curiosity about me, a glimmer of understanding I hadn't felt in years. At first, our connection was innocent. Jokes at meetings, texts about work, nothing more or so, I told myself. But the line between harmless and dangerous is thinner than you think. Each late-night text, each lingering glance, was like a microfracture, tiny, almost invisible, but destined to break something solid if left unchecked. That's what psychologists call emotional infidelity, the kind that creeps in before anyone notices. So why did I call her? Maybe I was chasing the dopamine rush, that little jolt of excitement the experts say we crave when life turns gray. Or maybe I was just desperate to feel seen again. But one thing's certain, when Rachel picked up and her voice trembled with hope, I knew there was no turning back. That call set off a chain reaction, and suddenly, my ordinary life was in free fall. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever convinced yourself a small betrayal isn't really betrayal at all? I did, every day, as Rachel and I slipped further from innocent banter into stolen moments. We met in crowded cafes under the pretense of discussing project deliverables, but our conversations drifted from tile samples to dreams and regrets. At home, I tuck Emily into bed, feeling like an actor in someone else's life, the word integrity ringing in my head like a distant alarm. Now, imagine the pressure building every lie, every half-truth adding atmospheric stress, like tectonic plates quietly grinding beneath the surface. That's cognitive dissonance, the tension between my actions and what I'd always believed about myself. I reasoned, Claire and I are drifting apart. Maybe this is fate. But deep down, guilt was eroding me. And then the dam burst. One careless oversight, a message from Rachel left on my phone. Claire's voice shook as she asked, "Who is she?" In that split second, everything froze. The trust we'd built over years evaporated, replaced by a cold vacancy. If you've ever broken someone's trust, you know it's not a dramatic explosion, but a devastating silence, like air being sucked from a room. Those next weeks were a blur of consequences. Claire packed bags for herself, and Emily, our little girl's drawings still taped to the fridge, now a backdrop to heartbreak. Rachel thought this was freedom for us. But as I sat alone in that empty house, the thrill of secrecy curdled into regret. I was left with a simple, brutal equation. One moment of weakness versus a decade of shared history. So, what do you do when you've shattered your own world? My answer was to face it, every ugly truth, every broken promise. I reached out for help, starting therapy and begging Claire to join me in counseling. Rebuilding trust, I learned, isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistency, vulnerability, and patience. Every day became an act of rebuilding proof, not promises. Here's where the story finds its hardest questions. Can a relationship recover from betrayal? Can you ever truly forgive or be forgiven? I won't sugarcoat it. Healing was slow, and some scars will always linger. But let me tell you a story within this story. During one particularly tense counseling session, Claire asked me, "Why didn't you just tell me you were unhappy?" Her voice was tired, but in that moment, I saw the raw strength of someone willing to fight for what mattered. It was then that I realized love is less about fireworks and more about the daily decision to show up. In marital therapy, our counselor explained attachment theory, that we all crave stability and connection. But when those bonds weaken, we seek validation elsewhere. Sound familiar? I started to see my own mistakes, not just as moral failings, but as wake-up calls. With every honest conversation, every apology that didn't beg for absolution but accepted blame, something shifted. Rachel faded from my life, a necessary part of this healing. Slowly, Claire and I found our rhythm again, not as the couple we once were, but as two flawed people learning to build something stronger. You might be wondering, Daniel, is it really possible to move past something like this? The answer isn't a fairy tale. Yes, it's a commitment to the messy, beautiful work of choosing each other day after day. Today, our family is different, maybe even better, because the illusion of perfection is gone. We're honest, sometimes painfully so. But in that honesty, there's real intimacy. So if you're listening and you're standing at your own crossroads, let my story be a warning and a hope. The excitement of newness can be blinding, but the quiet, enduring love you've built is worth twice as much. Sometimes, what you need is already waiting for you at home, hoping you'll see it before it's too late.